Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, and despite the fact that I just said this is a weekly podcast, I don't completely know if I remember how to review an episode of The Simpsons. It's been so long, but fortunately, I've got your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid, to help us keep this thing on the tracks. How you doing today, Rich?
Let's see. Back through notes. Oh, wait, I didn't date it. The Great Money Caper. I don't even remember when we recorded that one, man. I really don't. And honestly,
3 weeks ago, sir. 3 weeks ago.
I don't always take notes for our Best Darn Everything, especially if it's something I feel like I already know pretty well. Last week I took notes because the Cowboys just pissed me off so much. So I had a whole page plus of notes. But yeah, I need to start dating these so I can look back at what day we actually recorded all these. If only there was a website or like a
If only the first thing you learned in middle school was to title and date every paper that you ever did. If only.
But no, it's going to be interesting. This was a appropriate episode coming up on the 1 year anniversary of when we were all snowed in for a week. So let's get going on that. Let me throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the Dorcas. It is Miles.
That's not even grammatically correct. I can't write this. I honestly didn't even put that together. That this is basically a year out from the Texas snowocalypse. Yeah, you're 100% right. What a weird time to be alive that was.
Mm-hmm.
But it
was pretty cool.
It was cool. It was cool that, I didn't have to deal with like power outages and whatnot like a lot of people did. I'm sure for those people that didn't have water or heat, they were probably real sad.
Well, it was literally pretty cool.
Yes, the temperature
my jokes
was
are
in fact
wasted
cool
on you. My jokes are so wasted on you.
But my nephews love them.
Good.
No, but this is a good episode. I'll just say it. I honestly forgot that it is kind of a Christmas episode. They tack it on at the very end. I guess it technically counts. If we were to play back just Christmas episodes, you'd have to include this one on the list, though. It's a lot more about being cold than it is about being festive.
See, I feel like it's like, I remember when Camel Lisa at the end says,
honk,
Merry Christmas from the Simpsons or whatever. I was like, oh crap. And then I go, you know what? I remember when they did that the year that it came out. I think it was a couple weeks earlier than it usually was for the Simpsons Christmas episode. So I honestly will not consider this in Simpsons Christmas episodes, even though they say it in the episode and they try to watch a Christmas movie in the episode. I don't feel like it's a Christmas episode.
A Christmas movie about a grinchy little character that tried to steal Christmas.
He's been singing for 2 hours.
Well, you did bring up that it came out a little bit earlier than Christmas, but I don't know by how much. I'd have to go back and look. But this is the episode we're talking about today is Skinner's Sense of Snow, which originally aired on December 17th in the year 2000.
So, I was wrong.
Which might be the last time I'm able to do this, for what it's worth.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly don't remember if the next episode is past, but it would make sense that they usually do a holiday break that, it just makes sense that they would. But yeah, this episode was just 2 weeks before Christmas. So I don't know, man. I think it's probably right in that line.
I call that 1 week before Christmas.
So yeah, you're right. 8 days. Yeah, 100%. 8 days is 1 week before Christmas. So my bad on that. But either way, it did not feel super Christmassy by any stretch of the imagination. So it's fair, I think, that you could kind of do this in either one. And yes, the next episode we'll be reviewing is Homer, which aired on January 7th in the year 2001.
Doesn't have a nice ring to it, man.
You'll notice there was no inflection in my voice during that. Yeah,
I feel like weird, there was a want to put inflection on that while you were saying it.
I like literally debated it halfway through. I'm like, do I keep this bit going? And I'm like, no, honestly, I'm as sick of it as anyone. But I'm committed at this point.
And that is the story of Miles's life.
Yeah, honestly, that sounds about right.
Oh, that was sad.
Commit to the bit. But for committing to this podcast's sake. Again, season 12, episode 7 at this point. And this episode, again, kicks off with an interesting title sequence, only because I guess the chalkboard doesn't have anything to do with it, really. Science class should not end in tragedy. But I like the way that the couch gag kind of like directly ties into the opening sequence on this one, which is not always the case, but it's cool when they do that.
I felt like it was more of a rugby thing than a football thing, because I'm sorry, Maggie, you've been tackled. So when you get up and then spike the ball, you were tackled. Although,
see, I got the impression that it was more like a fumble scramble type of thing, and Maggie ended up with the fumble recovery in the end zone, which is why she spiked it.
That may be there. There were a few times in my streaming service.
I know that you're not as big of a football fan as I am, Richie, so you might not know the finer points of the game, but that was my interpretation.
No, there were a few moments on this stream where it would jump ahead like 3 or 4 seconds, where like I know I missed like one quick little jab a couple times, and it was very frustrating to me, but not enough to like go back and like restart it from the beginning to wait 20 minutes to get that joke in. And I was like,
so glad how dedicated you are to the podcast. That means a lot that you're willing to watch the episode completely almost once each week.
Exactly. I appreciate that too. I've seen this episode like 10 times. It's a great episode, Miles. Continue.
It also continues a great gag right off the bat, because that opening couch gag turns into Homer cheering for football. Excuse me, I'm dying.
Well, don't do that.
My bad, y'all. That opening opens up with Homer watching football, and he continues this great gag that they've been doing for a while now, which is it was started by John Schwartzwelder, where Homer always has pendants for anything that he's supporting. In this case, he's literally like enjoying the preseason banter of the NFL analysts that nobody enjoys.
There's old women that enjoy it.
Are there old women that enjoy it?
I think that's the whole point. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that like the way that Jerry and Terry talk to each other
about their fashion choices.
Yeah,
which I do. This is actually a really great joke. They're bantering and kind of giving each other guff about their fashion choices, and then like the
because the Packers will be blinded by Jerry's tie.
And the wardrobe guy comes out from he's clearly like a stagehand, like wearing his headset and whatnot, and he's like, I am tired of you guys taking shots at the wardrobe. You guys can dress yourselves from now
on. Well, folks, he's got a point. With all our unscripted horseplay, we sometimes don't think about.
And literally Homer's on the phone, like excitedly, as if this were like an exciting play. Lenny, are you watching this?
Yeah, they really hurt that guy's feelings.
I know. It's like into it.
It's just like other people watching like a drama and then did you just see that twist?
Mm-hmm. It's basically us talking about movies, but exactly. That's about it. But this is actually all cut off by Marge and Lisa, who inform Homer, or really just question him, and that informs him. Are you ready for the circus, Homer?
Circus?
And that's when Lisa points out that they've had tickets to Le Cirque de Paris since September.
But I want to watch Brett Favre.
I love that.
I love that. Yeah,
it's so good. First of all, nobody actually knows how to say Brett Favre's last name. Some of you think that you do, but you're not 100%. You always question it, no matter how sure you are. But this is such a great Homer joke, frankly. And again, going back to Schwartzwelder pendant gig, he immediately tosses his football pennant and puts out a pennant that says French Circus on it. That's how specific these are.
I just like that Marge is like, come on, Homer, they're only in town for 8 months and then they're gone.
And he's immediately like, oh, I missed one of Jerry's zingers. Now I'm never going to catch up.
Yep.
As if the pregame is that important.
Oh, it is, Miles. It is.
We see the family arrive at the French Circus, where Marge is excited because there's finally a circus full of whimsy and wonder.
Oh, yeah. That's way better than fun and excitement.
And Lisa is reading, of course, because that's what Lisa do. She's learning that the French Canadians don't believe in refunds or exploiting animals for entertainment.
Oh, I wanted them to see him fire a gorilla out of a cannon.
They actually have like impressively good seats. Like I imagine those did not cost. Those were not cheap, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
They're like ringside up front. And the show actually starts. Well, first of all, we should point out that the usher seats them and then bids the family to enjoy the show, for one day we shall die. A very morbid usher.
Then he just disappears. Like he folds over into himself and goes blink, which, I just reminds me with Lisa's pamphlet. Miles, do you know how two pamphlets make sure that they both agree on something?
Neither of them folds?
No, they say brochure.
Ah, nice.
There we go. I'll try to leave you guys alone the rest of the day.
Bullshit. We get a opening of the show with this clown rolling through, trying to get somebody to help him open his jar of magic and butterflies and rainbows and bullshit. And they actually find a man up front who's like wearing a suit, and it very quickly becomes apparent that it's a plant, because he's literally wearing a wire and starts flying around the circus tent. I do love Marge, though, here. She's like, oh, they always pick the guy with the wires.
Yeah. I also like that when they pick him out of the audience, he stands up. He's like, can you help us open this jar? You, sir? And he goes, but I cannot help you. I am just a local merchant from this town.
And Homer yells out, just smash it on the ground.
This guy was definitely the plant.
I actually really enjoy a couple of like the animation sequences in this circus. One is right away when they actually form the elephant, and I think that's actually kind of cool, and kind of leads up to later when they form a kite and then get caught in the tree, which always, like, I don't know why that cracks me up so much every single time. You see like guys tumbling and like literally falling out of the tree.
Yep, and the guy at the top can just let go and probably keep flying.
For sure. This is a very common thing that we see a lot during this era of The Simpsons, where the opening has absolutely nothing to do with what's really going on in this episode. This circus is entirely here, so we have an exciting moment when a storm blows through town, and it literally is like a strong enough storm that it's ripping a circus tent apart. And I guess, I mean, to be fair, it is in the year 2000, so they had to like rely more on like meteorologists than like a lot of like hardcore science equipment that we have nowadays that can basically predict exactly what's going to happen and still gets it wrong about 80% of the time.
Well, the thing that I appreciate about this is that, in a second when everyone starts leaving, Homer's like, oh, no, you don't. I paid full price for this freak show. Now nourish the child within me. And one of the things Lisa pointed out on their way in is it's a French Canadian circus, so they don't offer refunds. So like Homer's got the right mindset. If I'm going to show up, even though like my dad would have told me, well, there's a possibility of rain. There might be a storm coming, because he was nerdy and always looked at the weather. And now I do the same thing. But needless to say, you would go into this fully expecting the possibility of rain or a thunderstorm or a snowstorm. But if you paid full price, no, we're gonna take a chance with death here, and you're gonna sit here and perform.
Yeah, unlike how Bart hoped school will be, they're definitely not gonna let this thing be canceled.
There you go.
I like, as they're all fleeing the scene, Lisa sees Sea Captain McAllister like tied to a tree, and she's like, oh, the sea captain's all hunkered down. And then we cut to him like crying for help as some teenage pirates tied him up.
I just hope they all get out okay, Miles.
This is a good time to talk about the commentary for this episode, which featured Tim Long, Max Cross, Max Kramer, Ian Maxton Graham, Matt Groening, David Merkin, who is always a pleasure to hear pop up on a commentary, Mike Scully, and Matt Seltman. And this episode actually came from a real life experience from Tim Long's childhood. And actually, they talked about on the commentary, it was pretty funny because whenever he was like essentially going through his interview process, they asked him if he had like any like real life experiences that would be good for the show. And he more or less said, no, he didn't. And then almost immediately this story came out, after he was on the show, and they're just like, dude, did you not think this would be a good story for the because in real life he actually was in Canada, and he went to an elementary school where they were once the only elementary school to not close for whatever reason, and they ended up getting like stuck in the school because of a huge blizzard that came in. It wasn't that big of a deal. They all made it home just fine. There was no salt containers involved, but it was still just kind of funny that, you know, this is a perfect story for especially Bart, but also Nelson and even Lisa.
Nobody had to chew through anybody's ball sack.
Not that Tim talked about, but, you know, he may have left that detail out or put it in cartoon form.
That would be an interesting thing to talk about, like maybe on a Best Darn Everything, is like what stories from our lives could we turn into Simpsons episodes?
Oh, that's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
That could be fun. That's on the back burner for sure. This next sequence is kind of one of those things that has been killed due to the internet. I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't think this actually happens anymore. And admittedly, I never listened to the radio for this. I always turned on the news. The TV had, and it would have a scrolling thing going across the bottom. Mm-hmm. And you would just be sitting there praying to any possible spiritual leader that you could possibly talk or communicate with, hoping that you could convince them to let your school be on this list, because it would be the school closings and they would literally go across in like alphabetical order. And it would be a torment. Yeah, it's a ticker. It would be like a torment to sit there if like you were pretty far down the alphabet, just like wait, or if you like just
or if you turned it on right after the letter passed.
Like you're an
you flip over to another channel hoping that it had it on that one,
and then you turn back and you missed again. You're like, damn you. But nonetheless, it was one of the most exciting things. It doesn't happen a lot in Texas, but I went to school in elementary school in Kansas, Topeka, Kansas, and it was actually fairly common to have snow days. So it was always an exciting time, but they literally go through and they start announcing all the schools, and it's Shelbyville, Ogdenville Tech, Springfield Elementary, My Dear Watson Detective School.
Oh,
which is a great bit. And they even they say lastly, Springfield Elementary School is open. And I love that they immediately go into this announcement, this ad, and it's open season on savings at Springfield Menswear, which is closed.
Oh, everyone's off but us.
Marge points out that they should quit complaining because their father and her don't ever get a day off. But then Homer immediately ruins that by running into the kitchen.
Linny says we got the day off. Yippee!
I like this bit a lot because Homer runs outside and immediately starts making a snow angel. And it comes out with him holding a pitchfork and having devil horns. And the best part, though, is he's like disappointedly like, "Aw, why does that always happen?"
Yeah. Because you are evil, Homer.
It's true, yeah. And you have to think that Ned's sitting over there just giggling to himself, as he's probably the reason it keeps happening.
And he probably did giggle, but then he has his comeuppance in this episode.
That's true. It's kind of an interesting episode for Ned, but I love the pairing of Ned and Homer in this one. In some ways, it reminds me of episodes like, what is it, Nacho Man, where they go...
Oh, yeah, that absolutely.
Like where they have like a good adventure together.
Yeah, I don't know. This one kind of left me feeling a little salty.
Okay. Oh, nice. But so the kids are off to school, and even Otto, you can tell it's like a questionable day because Otto is like sliding all over the road, just running into everything. And the kids are like, yeah, actually, it'd make like a cool roller coaster. The kids are disappointedly looking out the windows, seeing literally everybody but them having a great snow day. I like that there is a ice sculpture that Apu is making of the like 8-armed goddess that Shiva, is that right? No, that's the trophy. Yeah, that's it. I was thinking of the trophy on the league. I apologize entirely, but either way,
Shiva in the
Yeah,
And then
maybe
him
that's
do
what I'm
Faith.
thinking of. But there's also ice skaters and ice fishers and all sorts of fun, which I always question the idea of doing both of those activities next to each other. But hey,
It's a
it is what
cartoon.
it
Who
is.
cares?
I live in Texas. I don't have any opinion on this.
We close schools when there's half an inch of snow on the ground. That's actually just ice.
Yeah, that's true. But we also have literally no way of handling it. So it's definitely important that we do.
Yeah.
There's a really funny Wiggum moment here where he's spelling out his name Clancy, and it's very brown. You'll notice is the first thing. Like, oh man, homeboy needs to hydrate because it very much looks like he's peeing his name into the snow. But then he asks Lou to come out and, hey Lou, shake out the last few drops for me.
Oh, sure thing, Chief. And from the angle, it looks really, really bad.
It does. It does
Did they
look
say
bad.
anything about this in the commentary, by the way?
They do not say anything in this on the commentary so much, but they do mention it on IMDb. And the first bit of trivia actually says that this episode features an inordinate amount of jokes involving male genitalia, including the circus performer thrusting in Homer's face, as we saw earlier.
Yep.
Wiggum urinating in the snow. Later, we'll hear Willie say to Skinner, "That's the last time you'll slap your Willie around."
The ball sack joke.
The whole Rance dressing scene with Homer, and of course the chew through my ball sack, which the animation department actually was given extra work because they had to write dodgeballs in every shot of that, like in the episode, so that when they got to that joke, it would be 100% justified.
Gotcha.
That was their way of getting out of it. And they even list, and I'll be honest, I watched this back after reading this to be like, okay, maybe I get it, but like I don't know how much this one counts. But there is a shot of the salt silo at the end as it's sliding down the hill, and it looks like the top of it is more rounded than normal. So you could imagine what that looks like.
I had a split second where my adolescent brain went to that moment. But I just let my life carry on after that split second.
Carry on, my wayward future son.
That's a weird thought. But either way, we didn't finish the joke earlier. Clancy was not peeing in the snow. He was pouring out his coffee and asked Lou to finish shaking out the bottle. We never clarified. I cut you off, so my bad. He wasn't holding his groundskeeper Willie for what it was worth.
So the last time you'll abuse your Willie.
Mm-hmm.
So we get we get the kids arriving at school to Skinner, who is giving a speech saying how proud he is, as most of the students didn't bother to show up, seeing as it's the last day before Christmas break. Oh my
gosh. Yeah.
And he mentions his Cal Ripken-like streak of school openage, which means that all of this is entirely about Skinner's ego of being, or probably just keeping Superintendent Chalmers at bay.
Hey, where are the teachers?
Their union has called an emergency caucus. Caucus. It's literally all the teachers getting drunk as hell at a ski lounge.
We both fucked that one up. Ski lodge
doing a conga line saying caucus, but literally even the teachers like union, when it let them come in, that's how bad this was.
One of the kids in the classroom looked like one of Nelson's, like, I was going to say one of the other bullies from like the Bart the General episode back in season 1. What the sub boss? That's what's like, the two sub bosses Nelson used to have. One of the kids looked like that, and like the camera was on him for like a weird amount of like couple split seconds extra, and I was like, have we seen him since then? I don't even remember.
I'll be honest, I did not notice that or recognize that, and I cannot answer your question, therefore.
Seems like a Schwartzwelderlian thing to do. One of those. Maybe. We're having trouble talking right now with lounges and lodges and Schwartzwelders and not.
Oh my.
We'll get better, I promise.
I don't. That's probably not true. But Skinner is there to reinsure or make sure everybody is not doubting their decision, which they absolutely are. We'll all have the last laugh on those Johnny-come-notlies. We're going to watch my favorite movie about a grinchy little character who tries to steal Christmas. And we see that it's a projector of the Christmas that almost wasn't but then was. A 1930s black and white film that looks absolutely awful.
It reminds me of Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, almost in a way.
It might be trying to play on that, frankly, because it very much has that same campy feel to it.
SANTACLAUS hooray for Santa Claus. That's been stuck in my head for years, man. They literally spell out Santa Claus, but then say Santa Claus. I don't get it. Sorry, continue.
It's okay. Obviously, that movie affected somebody, and that person.
That movie's hilarious without watching the Riff Tracks version of it too, for what it's worth. But that was also fun. You were there. You remember?
I do. I was there, and that was a good one. To be fair, that was a great Riff Tracks movie. We get this awful looking movie. We'll just say that it features like hobgoblins trying to destroy Santa's workshop, which has like cardboard cutouts of deer and elves.
And you can see the hobgoblins are clearly wearing masks, as you can see their like mouth to jaw as a human.
We get this really weird scene where a hobgoblin is serenading Little Bo Peep for some reason, and like it just keeps going and going and going. And Milhouse even at one point is like, "Oh my god, he's been singing for 2 hours."
This couldn't have less to do with Christmas. And I think that's a stagehand.
I wonder if that is a ribbit or a poke at this very episode, honestly.
Maybe it is. Man.
I really wish like they would have had like an animated stagehand come out at some point during the episode. And I even hope that they did and we just didn't notice. Like not in the movie, but in the Simpsons episode.
You know, man, in my theater days when we did Carousel, I was a guy that had to change scenery on sets in that one. Like, and there's a lot of set movement. And one time, me and another guy got caught on stage when the lights were coming up, and we had to dip behind this big part of the set. And we were literally stuck back there. It was the longest scene in that show. So we were back there for like 45 minutes. And at one part, there was dancing where people would dance off stage, and people were pantomiming to us, like dance off stage with them. So like we walked behind them dancing. It was so obvious, but I thought it was pretty fun.
That sounds great. That sounds like it's out of an episode of like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or something. Like I'd see that being like Charlie and Mac or something, like getting stuck in a shenanigan.
Hey, looks like we do have stories that could be episodes of The Simpsons. See, it's already writing itself.
Who knows? We do have a big Simpsons Did It coming up I'm excited to talk about, but before we get there, I love this joke here about the what we think is a projector of this movie this whole time starts to catch on fire and burn up, and Nelson is like, "Ha ha, next time get a DVD."
This is a DVD.
And somehow he ejects the DVD, which is on fire, and starts like stamping it out with his foot, which just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. A DVD would melt. It would not catch on fire.
Well, it's close to the usual dismissal time.
He literally counts out. He's like 2, 1, ring, 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 ring. So this movie was like pushing all day. They watched this movie literally from morning to school out, and like Skinner was still not going to let them go early at this point.
Well, take off and have a frank and productive holiday.
We failed to mention earlier when Skinner started the movie, he actually pulled the blinds down in the classroom, blocking our view of the weather. And immediately as he makes this announcement, he raises the blinds and is surprised to see that his view is entirely whited out with snow. And immediately he's like, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. That's all right, though. That's not the front door, Miles.
At the front door, though, it's no better because Nelson immediately is like, oh my God, we're trapped in the school. Milhouse, we're gonna miss Christmas. But not to worry, because Skinner has fixed the DVD. And that brings us to the end of our first act. I love that they are mortified more by the DVD being fixed than the being stuck in school or missing Christmas. It's a really good joke.
Yeah, it was.
We open our second act with Kent Brockman reporting that a big snowstorm, which has been upgraded to a Class 3 hill storm. And I love Marge is like, ooh, I don't like the idea of Class 3.
Class 3, yeah.
And here's my favorite Simpsons did it moment so far. Kent Brockman says, "And where are the city snowplows? Sold off to billionaire Montgomery Burns in a veritable orgasm of poor planning." And we literally cut to Burns Manor, where Burns and Smithers are using the rocket plows to play a giant game of car soccer. Where have you seen that before,
gosh,
Rich?
Miles. They should have a Mr. Plow vehicle in the Plow King added to Rocket League.
Oh my God, why don't they have the Mr. Plow in Rocket League?
I can't believe you didn't come to that conclusion already. That was like almost an orgasmic sound that Miles just made there. Everyone was here and they heard it. Well, if you're watching right now, then it's live. But if you hear it later, it was recorded. Either way, it's dirty.
Either way, you just heard this orgasmic bit of poor planning that is this podcast.
He shoots, he scores.
That's what he said. But yeah, I do love it. They basically created Rocket League. It looks like they're having a good old time with it. But unfortunately, that leaves the kids stranded. I love this joke here too with Homer. Marge is like, "This is terrible. How will the kids get home?"
Internet.
And admittedly, on the commentary, they did say that they used this joke more than once for Homer in this era, just because it seemed like an exact thing Homer would say, and it kind of worked as an easy punchline when they needed one.
I mean, for the time, it's almost more prominent now than back then. No, I mean, it made sense.
Back at the school, everybody is, or I'm sorry, I should say all the kids are just immediately like, how the hell did we get out of here? Skinner does not seem to care at all. Even when Nelson is like, "I can cut through the snow. I'm part Eskimo."
I don't care if you're Christy Yamaguchi. No one leaves this building.
That stinks. We'll miss the Itchy and Scratchy where they finally kiss.
I don't care if they're kissing Christy Yamaguchi. You're not going home.
Apparently she was a very popular bit of athlete in the media at that time, I'm guessing. Even Sherry and Terry, they were like, "That's so unfair.
This blows."
Skinner's the real Grinch, since we didn't see one in that movie earlier.
Yeah, it's already starting, man.
Homer
I love,
and Flanders.
Like, right before that bit, though, the kids all talked about missing Christmas and all the plans they had, and Skinner's like, "Yes, we'll all miss our plan." Well, I didn't really have any, so it
doesn't affect me.
Yeah. It's both sad and funny at the same time.
Very much so. A very Skinnery line too. And this is where we actually see Homer and Flanders plan they basically are getting together, teaming up, if you will, to rescue the kids. You can see that they are in Ned Flanders' car that has a piece of roof, like a wedge attached to the front. And Ned is immediately complaining, like, "Well, I'm all for rescuing the kids, but I wish you hadn't sawed off my roof."
My car, your roof. It's only fair.
But it's my car.
Well, yeah. Hold up. I want to say something right before this next line. So right before Ned popped on the screen, I literally wrote the notes. Homer and Barney should have kept their plows. Because I forgot about this joke. Okay, go.
And then Ned's like, "Hey, whatever happened to that plow from your old snowplow business?"
I never had a snowplow business.
"Sure you did, Mr. Plow. You're wearing the jacket right now."
I think I know my own life, Ned. Called Mr. Plow. That's my name. That name again is Mr. Plow.
And he's literally singing his own theme song as Ned drives out with like an angry look on his face.
All right, so I had to write.
Homer's driving, isn't he?
Yeah, Homer's driving. I had to write a second note immediately after my first one that said, "Oh wait, Ned called him out."
Yeah, I guess that's just as good as not having an incongruity in the first place, right?
Exactly. There you go. I like that Homer just doesn't remember it though. They just write that one off.
Homer and Ned better get moving because conditions of the school are already turning pretty bad. They're basically eating like restricted food. I think it's like a scoop of relish.
Yeah, one scoop each only.
Yeah. Nelson is already breaking and he decides to ride his bike out through the snow is his idea, but he just immediately bounces off, and then his bike like bounces in kind of a ridiculous manner. And it turns out that that joke was actually originally going to be a much longer joke because George Meyer had it in his mind that he wanted that bike to bounce around for like several minutes. Like at one point he had pitched it where the bike was gonna like bounce upstairs and like it was just gonna basically just keep going and going and going and going, which honestly I have to say sounds almost Family Guy like.
Yeah, that's what comes to my mind immediately when you say that too. I'm glad they didn't do that. I also don't ever think of the school as having a second floor. Before the last time we saw Skinner and Krabappel with Bart in the school on lockdown.
Even though every time we see it, it's clearly 2 stories from the outside.
Yeah,
but I agree with you. Yeah,
the way that the scenes are angled and everything, you don't ever think of it as being a 2-story school. Same thing like on South Park. Until you play the video games on South Park, you don't really think of South Park as having a 2-story elementary. It's weird how your mind works that way.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
But this joke does get cut off though, so it does not go the extended route.
Right. And I like that Skinner uses this moment to be like, you see what happens? Like, can we all calm down now? Like, it's clearly, you can't get out. This isn't going to work.
But that's not working because the kids are already revolting. We want out. We want out. And Skinner retreats to his office and he's like, think, Skinner, think. What would Superintendent Chalmers do?
Skinner.
Oh, that's not going to help. I like that we actually get like the full thought bubble come out and it like actually yells at him for a second.
So that's one of the things that I missed right there. Like I literally missed the what would Superintendent Chalmers do and the Skinner, and that's it. Like,
oh, interesting.
Mine went from think Skinner, think. That's no help. Like, that's what it did.
Which is more of a Homer. That would work as a Homer line, frankly. Just as is. But in his frustration, Skinner kicks his old military footlocker and he's like, oh, back in Nam, I could command respect. And we cut to a flashback to a Vietnamese POW camp where Skinner and 2 other men are are like sharing a, like, essentially, I would say like bamboo, maybe, or wooden of some sort.
It's a very John Kreese, Terry Silver looking thing.
Sure. Actually, yeah, it is. It is. Going back to our Cobra Kai episode, that is definitely in that world. But basically one of Skinner's men is like, we should make a break for it, Sarge, while the other guards are partying with Jane Fonda.
Nope. Too dangerous. We're all going to sit tight and reminisce about candy bars.
One time I'm eating a candy bar at the beach and then a girl starts taking off her bathing suit.
Get back to the candy bar.
But that's enough for that first soldier. He's like, the hell with this. And he literally just runs out through the wall. Like, it's not that strong at all. But as Skinner cries out, no, you fool, we hear the squeals of an elephant. And the next thing we see is an elephant, like, swallowing this soldier whole. Which they even mentioned in the commentary, like, man, we make elephants, like, really violent on this show.
There's a lot of animal and elephant jokes in this episode, too. But,
there is, yeah.
That elephant ate my entire platoon. Except I have all sorts of complaints about this scene because, wait, Skinner was Tanzarian, who I don't think was a sergeant. And if your entire platoon was eaten, then what happened to the real Skinner? I can't get over it, Miles.
And I'm the type that can literally just be like, oh, a wizard did all of this. Possibly Doctor Strange even. I don't know.
Well, the wizard wasn't born yet, so I don't know if that's how that works. But let's continue. Let's forget this ever happened.
Skinner's inspired to put on his old uniform, which is kind of cool to see, honestly. And he's trying to like go into sergeant mode, essentially. And he starts by taking out the leader of the rebellion, Nelson.
It's the right way to do it.
Yeah, he's smart in the way he handles this. He literally picks up Nelson by the vest and hangs him on a hook. Who Nelson's like, come on, guys, fight back. There aren't enough coat hooks for all of us.
Well, yeah, because he gets Willie to put Nelson on a coat hook. So
he's like hanging there dangling. Yeah.
Actually, there are, let's see, 5, 10, 15, 20.
He points to Sherry and Terry.
Can you 2 share a hook?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We're fine then.
Which is so good. Again, Skinner actually has some great lines in this episode, dude. Like, he's usually not one that gets a ton of laughs, but he kind of owns this episode, especially in the first half.
We'll see what happens. He still has one formidable opponent left in this school.
But also an ally.
Maybe.
Homer and Flanders are now trying to, like, it seems bumper pool, very auto-like on the way to the school. Homer is just like ramming random snowbanks as they go through, and that's like, I think we hit something.
I hope it's Flanders. I'm just kidding. Hey, you're all right.
Flanders looks visibly upset in this moment. Like he's obviously hurt by this, and like it really, I think, stings more because it so naturally comes off of Homer's tongue as if it's said this joke 1,000 times before.
Because he has
exactly
He's literally done it so many times with anybody but Flanders, and it's such a great moment to actually have Flanders there. Almost like Homer just naturally goes that route. And now we finally get a reaction from Ned. Like that was hilarious.
Honestly, very similar energy in this next scene with Skinner as he's starting to take more control. He's got all the kids like cinched up in a like ball sack, which sounds dirty, in like a
rucksack.
There you go. We'll go with that. But to keep things, making sure he's keeping his nemesis in check, he puts the pee bucket, or how he actually says it is, if anybody needs to answer nature's call during the night, you can use this bucket I placed by Bart's head. Hey!
But it's almost like he poked the beast there.
Yeah, it is, because Bart can't take it anymore either. He manages to get out of his sack, and he starts tunneling out through the deliveries door.
He's got like a ladle or something.
Yeah, I think it's from the kitchen. And even Lisa, I think, is trying to convince him maybe it's not a good idea. Like, what if there's a rescue party about to dig to us right now? But we cut outside and see that there's just 2 wolves. And in subtitles, we can see one of them say, I smell human meat.
The other one says, I also smell human meat.
And they're very interested in said human meat.
Which, I mean, you could have just stayed calm. Willie could handle the wolves and you could get out.
That's
but
true.
I will say they used the wrong type of dog here, Miles. If they want a dog that can dig a lot faster than the wolves in ice and snow, they should have used Huskies. I have no affiliation with Huskies. I'm just saying they should have used Huskies.
Fair, though. I think Huskies are pretty much a direct descendant from wolves, aren't they?
Yes, but they can smell water and stuff under like actual water that you can drink, and they're good at digging in ice. I actually have lots of affiliation with Huskies, if you guys don't know yet, so I lied. I'm sorry.
Probably my favorite moment with Ned and Homer in this episode is this next one we cut back to, because Homer is full on jamming to feel like making love. But the best part is he claims to have written the song, and more so, he wrote it for Princess Di and her boyfriend Dodie.
But I like that. Like, I just want to point out in the script, it starts on this part by saying "back in the Geo." So just picture freaking Geo, tiny little
sliding around on ice. Yeah,
yeah, it just makes the imagery so much
crazy
better.
Storm. And I guess the storm really is crazy because they hit a fire hydrant and the water starts to spray out and then instantly freezes over the car. I mean, like, basically Iceman from the X-Men levels of quick in terms of how like freeze them.
Oh, we might have to play Mua 3 again soon.
Oh my gosh, I'd be down for that. But we we cut there with Homer and Ned basically trapped on their journey once more, and cut back to Bart, who's now ladling his way out. But unfortunately, Ralph ruins this for him because he goes to Skinner and is like, Mr. Army Man, I can't sleep without my Reggie Rabbit.
Is that some sort of plush novelty?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, here's a scouring pad. It's just as good.
And Ralph starts to like caress it up against his face and snuggle with it. No, it's cold and hurty.
Poor Ralph had to ruin the fun.
Because this alerted Skinner to Bart's plan. He could sense something was up, so he went to investigate, and he basically calls out Bart, blowing the whistle, and pulls him out of the past. He even says, I know it looks like the path to freedom, but one collapse and presto, you've got a snow casket.
I was going to put buttresses in.
Gonna, wanna, shunna. Willie, destroy it.
You did do a bony job, sir.
Defying orders, eh? Well, I see you Scotsmen are thrifty with courage, too.
Okay, Skinner. That's the last time you'll slap your Willie around. I quit.
And Skinner does the job himself, poking the roof with a broom until it crumbles, only he was too far in when this happened, and he actually ends up getting stuck, now with his body entombed in a snow casket and only his head sticking back into the school. And a real quick note on that line Skinner says to Willie, which is the I see you Scotsmen are thrifty with courage. That's actually a reference to a derogatory thing said about Scotsmen in the UK, essentially. It's
Really?
based on an ugly stereotype commonly referred in Europe about how Scottish people are cheap and go out of their way not to spend money if they can avoid it.
It honestly, like the phrasing of the line seemed like that it meant something. So I'm glad there was actually
There was
clarification
definitely
there.
weight in that line when they said it.
I'm sure the Scottish folk that saw this episode did not take offense to it and probably laughed it off. 'Cause
Probably
that's what
laughed,
they do.
yeah, because that's what Scottish people do because they're too cheap to be offended. But I love that Bart's also like prodding him, like, "What's the matter, Seymour? You stuck?
That's precisely the problem, and you know it. Now get me out of here."
What's that? You want me to put the pee bucket on your head?"
No, you're twisting my words. Yay!
And Bart announces, "Come on, we're taking over the school." And that brings us to the end of our second act.
I want to mention, I feel like I very much have a problem with Skinner's leadership in that last scene, because I feel like a good leader, like the problem that Skinner had was he was trying to make a spectacle out of Bart. He blew the whistle, got everyone up to go see what was going on, and then Bart turned it on him and got the students behind him. A good leader just would have been concerned with like protecting Bart right there, because he's right. If that thing collapses, Bart's dead. Bart's dead.
So dead.
Yeah. So a good leader just would have gone in there to get your man out, got him back, and then worried about all that other stuff.
Yeah, and Skinner really should have understood that Bart was obviously more popular than him. It would not take much for him to turn him.
Exactly.
We commonly talk about the timing of these episodes, and I think this one's kind of interesting just because it's so even. The first act on this one was almost exactly 7 minutes. This one's almost exactly 6.5 minutes, and the last act is almost exactly 7 minutes. A very, very evenly paced episode.
Yeah.
We see the start of our third episode with the kids have turned the tables on Skinner. He is now in his burlap dodgeball sack, which does very clearly say dodgeball on it. Only he makes his first mistake by asking, "Hey, where are all the dodgeballs?" And they start flying at his face and other body parts.
Yep.
Nelson has taken over the food. He's now giving out the pickle relish by the trophy full. Yeah, honestly, that one gets me too. I like pickles a lot, but that's just wrong.
Not relish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bombardment. We missed that. That's the joke I was looking for.
What's that?
I was looking for the word bombardment. That'll be in a future Simpsons episode.
Word. We see the kids are doing things like racing the janitor's buckets down the hall, which actually looks pretty fun. But that would be so hard to balance.
Yeah, I like how they think like putting the little handle back and forth makes it go faster.
Yeah, for whatever reason. There's a really funny bit where Milhouse is drawing the mustaches on old presidential portraits, but he gets to President Taft, who actually has a mustache, and he's like, "I don't know what to do." But basically everybody can just see that Skinner has lost control of the school. We cut back once again to Homer and Flanders, who have been stuck in the ice. Homer is cursing that ice, saying he always knew he'd die caked in something. And Ned is wise to immediately point out that they should probably kill the engine before they get too many fumes and they die in that. But Homer's like, well, let's just leave it on until we forget our troubles. I get it.
Sounds like a plan.
But they both start to go unconscious. This does not look good for either of them. Back at the school, Bart has really started to punish Skinner. He's literally got him writing in chalk with his mouth, I think, because his hands are not free. But he's writing, "I ain't not a Dorcas" on the blackboard.
I can't write this. It's a grammatical nightmare.
Mao! D.D. Mao!
I'm getting a cramp in my wrist.
Oh, boo-hoo. After all the times I've done it, my wrist sounds like a cement mixer. And he gets like... as he's doing that. The Dee Dee Mao thing is interesting. From the commentary, they actually brought that up. That was actually a Al Jean suggestion. And it's essentially from the movie The Deer Hunter, which features a soldier being imprisoned in a Vietnam War camp. And that's what they repeatedly scream at him. So that entire thing is a reference to the movie The Deer Hunter.
I thought like other pop culture like movies or shows have used that as well, but like
I'm sure they have, but that's the one that he claims was his inspiration.
It's just that like it's like I mean, I don't want to say cool, but it's cool that like they actually use something historically
from Vietnam,
reflective of Skinner. So like,
and then in a very Bart energy, and when Skinner starts to protest, he's like, "What part of Dee Dee Mao did you not understand?"
And I like when they have him climbing a rope, and he's like, "I'm telling you, it's impossible to climb a rope," which we always knew that.
Yeah, accurate, 100%. The kids take over, or I'm sorry, they apprehend, I should say, Skinner's key card, which allows them to access their permanent records. Skinner is immediately freaking out, but they start reading what everything says about them. We get a line from Bart here that's really funny. He reads, "Underachiever and proud of it," which causes Bart to say, "How old is this?" And that is actually a direct reference to the audition for Bart Simpson all the way back on the Tracy Ullman show, because that was the character description of Bart Simpson. And that line is actually what Nancy Cartwright says that she had originally gone in to read for Lisa. And when she read that, that's what made her decide to read for Bart.
Oh, awesome. That's a good story.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But underachiever and proud of it is Bart's original OG description for those. That's what makes that joke fun.
Well, then we get the Lisa file, which I enjoy this part. Lisa is an outstanding student with a slight tendency towards know-it-allism. That's not even a word.
And Milhouse, who is hopelessly trying to impress Lisa at all times, says like, "Well, I know we can just get rid of it permanently." And this is also an interesting scene because according to the commentary on this one, this scene is often removed in syndication just for, commercials and whatnot. It's just this entire sequence is just basically not there, where the permanent record uncrumples itself, reattaches itself, and then slams itself back in its home.
Oh my gosh, this is one of the parts that like it skipped ahead on my stream.
Well, then you got to experience just like it would be in syndication.
Wow. No, I'm wondering like if that might have been like the Disney Plus version or maybe something like that. I don't know. Interesting.
I love there's a sequence here where they find Nelson finds Skinner's pay stubs, and they realize that he makes $25,000 a year, which is probably still pretty close to accurate, frankly. And I love that immediately, like, let's see, 40 years old times 25 grand. Wow, Skinner's a millionaire.
Wow. I wasn't a principal when I was one.
And they're also not accounting for expenses at all, like how much it would cost just to live. But when they point out that he also paints houses in the summers, he's a billionaire.
Wow.
If I were a billionaire, why would I be living with my mother? And this is where Skinner realizes he's got one last ally at the school that might be able to help him, and he sees Nibbles, the school hamster. He literally writes a note that basically is like, SOS, send help, and he stuffs that in the hamster ball and then chunks him out into the snow with nothing but a thin layer of plastic to protect him, mind you.
Yeah, but the point is he gets him on top of the snow, and Skinner can see on top of the snow. So if he was that desperate to get out, why wouldn't you just climb out the window and take your chances?
You never know. But instead, he sends this hamster to his inevitable death, which somehow doesn't happen, but we'll get there. And also, as soon as he goes out, he sinks into the snow, and it looks like he's doomed.
I want to point out that 40 times 25,000 is exactly 1 million. So technically they're right. But that also makes me think, man, if you and I sat down and crunched out the numbers from all the jobs we've had over the year, it's terrifying to see how much money we throw away having to pay just to stay barely alive, right?
Dude,
got dark there for a second.
I don't want to have to go off on this tangent, but I guess it's gonna happen right now. I just discovered what has to be now my favorite piece of modern art ever, and also the only modern art that I can name. It's called the I Can't Help Myself, and it was actually a robot that was created to intentionally leak out its own hydraulic fuel. So it would constantly have to scoop in and like sweep in its own hydraulic fuel, or hydraulic fluid, which was dyed to look like blood. I'll add.
Oh
and
my
this
gosh.
is where this gets entirely tragic.
Wow.
This robot was programmed to like human interaction and to have fun and dance. So it would dance and interact with guests at this museum. But those interactions would actually cause its hydraulic fluid to leak out even faster. So this thing aged, it would have to basically spend more and more time focusing on nothing but just keeping itself alive. It actually died in 2019, and as it approached its inevitable death, the hydraulic fluid levels were so low that these metal on metal sounds started to happen, and it basically sounded as if like a human was screaming in agony. So this thing, up until its like death, basically screamed out his pain as it was able to spend less and less time doing what it was programmed to feel happy doing, and had to spend more and more time just working to live,
just getting by.
If that is not a perfect example of what life in America is like, I don't know what is.
Well, we took a dark turn.
Yeah, I didn't want to go there, people. I'm sorry, but I just learned about this, and that is weighing on my heart.
Honestly, that is a very story. I like that story though, man. That was a very good segue there, man. Like that was a very interesting story, a very interesting art piece, very interesting idea. And I absolutely hate it because it's way too close to home.
Yeah, 100%. I feel exactly the same way. But it's called Can't Help Myself. It's a fascinating story if you want to look it up on YouTube, or even it's being featured. I think it's actually making its rounds on TikTok, which is why it's relevant again right now. But man,
what's TikTok?
It's also a perfect example of what's wrong with society, but in a different way.
Too many metaphors to go along with that one.
Yeah, I don't know how to transition from this. I don't want to get any sadder.
Speaking of metaphors, Skinner's in a real pickle here.
He is not looking good. Relish. He actually tries to plead with Nelson. He's like, Nelson, if you get me out of this, there's a hall monitor position coming open in the spring.
I spit on your monitors.
I know. That's why the position's available. We cut back once again to Homer and Ned, who are now full-on hallucinating from the fumes that are filling up the cab of this car. Homer dreams that he's a sultan surrounded by dancing girls, and he's crying out, "Enough! I grow weary of your sexually suggestive dancing. Bring me my ranch dressing hose." This is just an awkward-looking scene where scantily clad women fill Homer's mouth with white cream as a camel nudges him and starts speaking in Flanders' voice, "Homer, Homer, honk."
Homer, wake up. The car's filling with...
I know. Ranch dressing. But that's how somehow miraculously, even though the last time we saw this hamster, he had fallen through the snow, but Nibbles in his hamster ball comes crashing through the windshield.
How is that little piece of hamster plastic strong enough to penetrate the glass on the windshield of the car?
Yeah, there's so many physics questions to be had in this one.
Which was covered in ice, too, for what it was worth.
And Homer declares a hamster ball, and Ned has such a wonderful response.
Just like the one that saved Ezekiel.
And they both start...
that part of the Bible.
Yeah, that was a weird reading on your part. I won't lie. It was more like, just like the ones that saved Ezekiel. Which is just a fun thing to think about, a hamster and a wheel crashing through a... car in the Bible, which I guess actually is the fitting place for that story. But regardless, the men are able to breathe fresh air from the hole in the windshield, and they Homer exclaims, "We're free!" And he holds up Nibbles and is like, "And we've got something to eat."
Then, like, instantaneously, the ice around the car just starts falling apart.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really understand what happens here. I guess just it gets cracked and that causes it all to shatter.
I guess. I don't know. There's some kind of physics in there that we don't know about because we're not Simpsons writers.
Or another wizard was involved.
Wizard did it. Yep.
The car is able to function again.
The
Geo starts driving, and that's when Homer's like, "Oh, it's got cruise control," and he pushes the cruise control button and says, "School, please," which ironically exists now if you have a fancy enough car. But in the year 2000 that was science fiction, and even Ned's like, "That's not how cruise control works."
It's still not how cruise control works, but closer.
And we see the car is barreling towards a cracker factory of all things. I wonder how that will come into play. First, though, we have to cut back to the school where the kids have actually started.
Well, you get the worker at the cracker factory that said, "Oh no, my horoscope said this would happen."
Oh yeah,
it's like you will face challenges today,
which is also how horoscopes work.
Yeah. Too many realistic statements.
Yeah, this episode is very real. We get back to the school where the kids are now burning books. They're like, Bart's like, "So long, Johnny Tremaine. Your Newbery Award won't save you now."
Huck.
Skinner's, "Not Huck Finn. I spent hours crossing the sass back."
Oh, book burning.
There is a note on IMDb. It's a little, honestly, I'm not fully sure when I read it earlier, I was like, huh? But let's see if it makes sense now. Johnny Tremaine book burning was a low point in the episode. The 1943 book is of an orphan silversmith apprentice, disabled and taken in by the Sons of Liberty. Tremaine is a witness to the Boston Tea Party and the American Revolution. It brought the American Revolution alive for many children over the decades and became a Disney movie after 57 years, which was ranked number 17 of the best children's book in 2000. So I think they're just saying that like this book. No, I never read this book. The big deal with that book is his hand gets deformed at one point. Like when he's smelting at one point, he gets his hand in there and like literally his thumb gets smelted like onto the side of his hand and he's got a deformed hand. So I think that's at that point you just like give yourself like a sword hand.
I guess so. Well, then there'd be more smelting of the hand, but I thought at one point in history there's a time where people didn't want to have that book read to children because of the deformity stuff in it.
Interesting. Well,
when we were kids, not now.
Mentioned, and it seems relevant if you're familiar, maybe, or maybe if you're just more educated than I am. I don't know. Regardless, turns out there's 2 giant silos at the cracker factory that Ned and Homer are barreling through. Ned realizes they're going to crash, and Homer's like, "Do you have airbags?"
The church opposes them for some reason.
Fortunately, the car hits the silo labeled salt. It tips over and starts sliding down the hill, which is literally
sliding down the hill.
Very much so. And it's funny because the salt silo is conveniently located in Springfield's ever constant geography, just at the top of the hill from the elementary school.
We need to look at Simpsons Hit and Run to see that for what it's worth.
we should see if that's there. The salt actually unfreezes or melts, I guess I should say, the snow, giving them access to the front door. Martin actually is able to taste the salt and realize that it's their good old friend sodium chloride.
Oh God. I don't know why.
Immediately Nelson starts beating the shit out of him.
I couldn't stop laughing at that, and I felt terrible about it, but like the repeated punches by Nelson for Martin being accurate for what it's worth. I was nerdy like that in school too, but for some reason that was freaking funny when I watched this.
That was a great moment, even though it was brutal. I actually meant to bring this up earlier during the permanent record sequence, but you know what? We'll talk about it now. Matt Groening famously based Nelson off of a kid he went to school with who he has not named, but in real life, he claims that kid spent so much time in the principal's office that he would offer a service of destroying pages out of your permanent record for 25 cents a page. Wow. Matt Groening claims that's an absolutely true story about the kid that inspired Nelson.
That's hilarious and awesome.
Yeah, entrepreneurship all the way, dude.
Yeah,
100. I dig it. So Skinner is, I guess, technically free of the school, though still stuck in his dodgeball sack. But he sees his ally Nibbles and is like, "Nibbles, you did it! Now just one more job. Chew through my ball sack."
Right?
And I love the expression that Nibbles gives is like the fuck you say before like running away.
Mm-hmm. And then help finally arrives.
And also, Superintendent Chalmers arrives just in time on a Springfield Elementary snowmobile, by the way, which, there's so much snow there that I guess that's a required purchase. But Superintendent Chalmers is just there to basically yell at Skinner and is like,
Skinner!
Superintendent Chalmers!
What are you doing in that ridiculous duffel, Seymour? And is that burning literature I smell?
Well, sir, I
there better be a good explanation for this.
And then, of all people, Bart comes in to save Skinner's hide, and he says, there is, sir, which is all Chalmers needs to hear.
Ah, then I'm happy.
And he rides off on his snowmobile. Whatever. There's an explanation.
It's a quick wrap-up. However, I think Bart understands that, like, you got to keep the status quo. If he wants to continue getting away with stuff like this, then he has to have a bargaining chip, because we've already seen an episode where Skinner goes away and the people they bring in, which ended up being
worse.
Marge at one point too. We've seen when the stakes go too far. So Bart understands the Simpsons reset, if you will.
I hear it. Yeah, he knows that he's better battling
the demon
face to face with Skinner than he is having to deal with somebody else by defeating him.
The demons you know are better than the demons you don't.
For sure, yeah. Bart and Skinner even have like a little moment where they agree that this is one of those things that just never needs to be discussed again, which there's even a funny
what never happened.
This thing that we just had happen, Bart.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They go on to explain, and Bart, like, Skinner goes on to explain.
I gotcha.
I love that. And then Homer, who is just completely
the salt instantly rusted this car too, by the way.
Oh, big time. Yeah, it looks gnarly. But Homer just comes out of this like gas leak dream and is like, all right, kids, let's leave this awful place and never come back.
So we've got Bart, Lisa, Rod, Todd, Flanders, and Homer in the car.
And the exhaust pipe is still leaking.
What?
And furthermore, and then Lisa turns into a camel, or at least it seems that way, and her words just turn into honk.
And then Bart turns into one of the dancing girls, but
which
still
is
looks
awkward.
Like yeah, but he still looks like Bart.
Oh, baby.
Ignore her, Effendi. We have each other.
And then Bart's like, ah! Homer starts to swirl around the road again, and it's like, it's no use struggling, my beloved Shamala. Lisa
Merry
just
Christmas
randomly comes up. Yeah, I was gonna say, instead of being in the car, Lisa like randomly like comes in from the side of the screen.
Merry Christmas from the Simpsons. Honk, honk.
And they gave credit to Yardley Smith for really committing to those honks, which were really funny, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to the end of Act 3 and to the end of this very clearly a Christmas episode from The Simpsons. Richie, is there any other things that you or that book of yours want to talk about before we call it a day?
I want to point out that if Homer wasn't willing to get high in this episode, that the kids would have never gotten out, or at least, been in school for another 24 hours.
So you're saying do drugs, kids. I agree.
Exactly. When he tells Ned, no, let's just chill and enjoy the fumes. That's what caused them to crash into the salt silo and save the school. So, do drugs, kids. I don't care what Dare tells you. But besides that, on a more realistic note, this was actually a really fun episode, man. Like, there's a lot of really good lines in here, a lot of good dynamic between certain characters, a lot of characters doing what their characters should do. Even Marge got a few of what we've been expecting of her lately with her like very sly but smart lines, like when they do the code for the storm, the code 13 or the class 3 kill storm. And she's like, I don't like the way class 3 sounds. Like this is, I didn't expect to get this level of enjoyment all the way in season 12 when we first started this podcast, but I'm glad there's been episodes of the season so far where I feel like we have been getting that enjoyment, and that's a great thing.
I completely agree with that. And I do think that we are kind of in this sweet spot right now where this episode, probably the last episode we did, and the next 2 episodes for sure, possibly even beyond another one. I'm just struggling to remember, but we've got some classic stuff coming up. We've got Homer, which is where Homer pushes the crayon up into his brain. And then we immediately follow that with the one where he has the metal trash can chiropractor like invention. So like we got some really classic bits from The Simpsons coming up, and hopefully those are going to be complete great episodes and not just isolated memories from those episodes. But that's what this podcast is all about. We're going to get to those hopefully pretty soon with Homer. We've been stalling. I'll just be honest. We've been stalling because we're trying to make our schedules work with something pretty cool. I really hope that it all lines up and that it'll all be worth the wait. In worst case scenario, it won't be, and we'll keep going anyway. But we do have another Best Darn Everything coming up in the near future. And then the following episode of The Simpsons is HOMR, Homer.
You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. Follow me at @thewiz_kid23. Most importantly, as always, follow our show. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. And Miles, if we do this podcast for 40 years and we make $0 an hour, we'll be millionaires.
Hey, if we paint houses in the summer in between episodes, make that billionaires. And until next time, be cromulent to each other.